that the Russians are amassing more troops along the front lines in every part of the front line. So it looks like they're preparing for another push. But again, they have not been able to achieve much in the last, well, year and a half more. So Ukrainian armed forces are defending our territory very well.
President Trump said at the end of last week about peace in Ukraine that nothing would happen until Putin and he got together. Well, later today, Donald Trump is due to call Vladimir Putin. Then Trump will call President Zelensky. So is that where something happens? Yuriy Sak is the advisor to the Minister of Strategic Industries of Ukraine, regular on this programme to give the Ukrainian perspective on all of this. We can speak to him now. Yuri, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
How are you feeling? Kate. How are you feeling about Trump on the phone to Putin and then to Zelensky? Does that feel like movement or more of the same?
Well, of course, we hope that this call will bring us closer to establishing an unconditional ceasefire. But as before, these talks have been going on now for quite some time without any results on the Russian side, because, Ukraine, we have done everything we had to do to demonstrate our commitment to the peace process. We have agreed to the unconditional ceasefire. We have signed the critical minerals deal. And we have showed up to every part of these negotiations, including the latest one in Istanbul. So, and every time something happened, we saw that Russia was dragging its feet, was deliberately delaying the process. We'll see what happens today. But of course, we're quite skeptical about the outcome.
Are you optimistic that Trump will be tough with Putin? I mean, that's the fear, isn't it? That Trump could have a cozy conversation with Putin, and then come to Zelensky and say Putin wants peace but doesn't really have anything else to put onto the table. That's the fear with all of this.
Well, Steve, we all understand that these kind of talks cannot last indefinitely. And until now, we have seen that the US was engaging with Russia, on the level of the Special Representative Witkoff. Marco Rubio went to Russia and met with Russian representatives. So it feels like the US president now probably is hopeful that, once he personally speaks to Putin and lays his offer before him, there will be an agreement. But again, it is most likely that Putin will continue to say something, ambiguous. He will never directly say no to Trump's offers. But at the same time, he will not say anything which can be actionable. He will not agree to the ceasefire. And we hope that will convince President Trump that peace through force, the time of peace through force has come, and more pressure must be applied to Russia to actually achieve the goals.
And meanwhile, the war continues forcefully, doesn't it? The attacks from the Russians are continuing.
Well, last night we had the largest since the beginning of the large-scale invasion attack of the drones. 273 of them were launched at Ukraine. The air raid siren in the capital Kyiv lasted for more than 8 hours, and people, thousands and thousands of people were, of course, in bomb shelters throughout the night. So yes, these attacks continue. As for the situation on the front line, we are seeing that the Russians are amassing more troops along the front lines in every part of the front line. So it looks like they're preparing for another push. But again, they have not been able to achieve much in the last, year and a half more. So Ukrainian armed forces are defending our territory very well. We are inflicting colossal losses on the Russians.
This scale, I mean, the largest drone attack since the beginning of the conflict, he was saying, Yuriy Sak. And this question, I suppose, is about faith, isn't it, Kate? Can you trust Trump to have a conversation with Putin and then transmit something meaningful to Zelensky is the big question. I think Yuri has just come back.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, Yuri, we lost you there. You were saying that Trump says he cares about life. That was the point you were making.
Well, yes, we're hearing it every day. Every time Trump speaks about this peace process about Ukraine, he says that he wants to stop people from dying. And On the other hand, Putin doesn't care about lives. He doesn't care about Ukrainian lives. He doesn't care about Russian lives. He doesn't care about lives. He just cares about his twisted ideas about the new world order, which he wants to create. So I think these are irreconcilable positions. And, we're hoping that Trump will actually call Putin's bluff, and he will actually apply pressure which is needed for Russia to be unable to prosecute this war for too much longer.
Because I think just finally, you there's a kind of fiction developing that there is some sort of obvious deal that can be struck between Ukraine and Russia. But every time I talk to you, every time we talk to people in Ukraine, every time we talk to people experts in the conflict, it's not at all clear where the middle ground here is between Putin and Zelensky, between Russia and Ukraine.
Well, Stig, the middle ground we see is simple, and it's actually been confirmed by our European partners, by even by the Pope, the newly inaugurated Pope in Vatican yesterday. It's just peace. Now, just peace means that the aggressor cannot be appeased. Just peace means that the mechanism should be in place for a lasting and comprehensive solution. Just peace that at some point in time we will get our territories back, even if at the moment we will not push for the complete withdrawal of Russian troops from our territories. And of course, this is something that Russia is not ready to accept. They're willing to continue the war. And, the time has come, we think, to apply more pressure to make it impossible for Russia to continue.
Yeah, and the question is whether Trump is willing to do that is the billion-dollar question, I suspect, Yuri. Great to speak to you, as ever.
Let's hope he is.
Yeah, we'll see what happens later today. Good to speak to you, as ever. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Stig.
That's Yuriy Sak, there, advisor to the Minister of Strategic Industries of Ukraine, making the point that the only way this ends is if you can't just say, let's have a conversation between Zelensky and Putin. Putin has got to be forced into a position by America where prosecuting the war is no longer worth his while. And the question is Trump ever going to be willing to do that? Or is he just like talking about doing it?
Well, I think the two things that Yuriy Sak said there were really interesting was that one of them, which is and always has been important to Donald Trump, is the idea that he cares deeply about ending the loss of life. He does seem to mention that a lot. That really does seem to drive him. And the other is that it seems that Ukraine is counting on the fact that at some point Trump is going to realise that Putin is never going to agree to anything he offers. Even if the offer is very good, Putin is never going to formally agree to it. And if Donald Trump gets to the point where he does realise that, then, as Yuriy Sak says, he hopes, the hope is from Ukraine, that America will realise that it's now peace through force and there needs to be more pressure on Russia. I think that's the big unknown. I think Donald Trump is going to be deeply frustrated by speaking to President Putin. I think we are going to see some reaction to that. And I think that Ukraine will probably still be in a better position than it was after that meeting in the Oval Office. But whether that means that America would be willing to commit more to a war that Trump has said he wants to end, I think the answer to that's probably no.
And that's the point, isn't it? The more I have this conversation with you and then we talk to people in Ukraine, you realise Trump wants out. And so if the solution is put pressure on Putin for another year and invest more money and invest more arms, that's not what he's trying to do here. He kind of has this belief that if they'll just sort it out, he can think about something else. And what the Ukrainians are asking for, and very striking again, Yuri said, we're not going to necessarily say they have to leave all of our dominions immediately. They've dropped their major objection to all of this Ukraine. They're basically saying we're not going to fight for Crimea at this stage.
Well, only because both sides here, Ukraine and Russia, accept this is not a war that's going to end. The fighting might end, but the war and the way those two countries relate, this is not going to end. I think the problem is, from Ukraine's perspective, they see Trump's intransigence as the only answer is more military conflict. There is a real risk that Donald Trump recognises Putin's intransigence as, well, that's an indefinite conflict that I 100% don't want to be involved in, and therefore, goodbye, I'm not going to help.
And that goodbye is the real fear for all sides.